Hi everyone. Today we're going over some frequently missed questions from chapter 3. Again, I'm just going to go over each of the questions and talk about which answer is correct and which answers are not correct and how you can get that from your reading to answer that next time. Okay, so our first question here was suppose you're looking at buying a new home and you have looked at several different houses. According to research on automatic decision making, what would be the best way for you to make up your mind about which one to buy? So this example was actually talked about pretty directly in the book. So we're going from exactly what the book was saying on this topic. So in the book, they're talking about it's really important to have both conscious processing and automatic processing. So you need to do both thinking about the houses consciously and not thinking about the houses consciously. So this first answer here, the one that got 69%, is actually the correct answer because you're spending both your time thinking about it consciously and then thinking about it unconsciously when you're distracting yourself working on puzzles. Some of you guys answered this distract yourself by working on puzzles and then choose a house. That's only half the correct answer. They're pretty careful to specify in the book that you shouldn't give up conscious thought completely. It's just better if you use both different types of thought to get that done. 9% of you guys chose to think consciously about the alternatives and make up your mind. Again, they were careful to specify that it is actually beneficial for you to distract yourself and think about it unconsciously. 6% of you guys said this had to do with sleep. Sleep was actually not mentioned in the text, although there is some evidence that taking a nap right after looking at studying or looking at alternatives to different problems can help, but that wasn't actually talked about in this textbook. Our next question is, suppose you've invited a new acquaintance over to your apartment and want to make a good impression. In other words, you want this person to like you. Which of the following should you do? So the top answer here is serve the person a warm drink and hope that he or she holds it in their hands while you're talking to him or her. This is directly from one of the findings in the book. They were talking about 3 different findings in this passage. One of them had to do with the warmth or coldness of something they were holding in their hand. The other one had to do with smelling clean. People are more likely to trust others if there's a clean smell in the air versus if there's not a clean smell in the air. And then also a heavy clipboard versus a light clipboard when you're looking at the weight of a decision. So going from those 3 findings, the best answer here is on top there, serve a person a warm drink and hope that he or she holds it in their hands. And that is supposed to make the person think warm thoughts about you versus cold thoughts about you, which is why this answer right here is incorrect. I see where you guys could have gotten tripped up on this second answer here, bake some bread before the person comes over so the apartment smells nice. I see where you guys were going there because you were thinking smells were mentioned in this other passage, and so maybe smells will work here. Well, one really important thing to note about social psychology in general is that sometimes the answers don't really generalize that far. So if it was important for the person to be smelling a clean smell versus just any other nice smell in general, that would be, it's mentioned in the text that this is specifically a clean smell versus just a nice smell. So when you're answering questions like this, be sure to be pretty specific about what the finding was and how far you can generalize it. So the next question is asking about holistic thinking styles. Which of the following is true of a holistic thinking style? 58% of you guys did get the right answer. People living in the West can think holistically if they are primed with pictures taken in Japan. In this passage, they were talking about how there's a whole bunch of other stimuli in the pictures from Japan. There's a lot more people, there's a lot more objects, and people were actually able to think more holistically, meaning the relationship between the objects, if they were primed with pictures that have all of this extra stimuli. And so that's the correct answer right there. This second most frequently answered question is it involves a focus on the properties of the objects without considering their surrounding context. This is actually the opposite of the definition. This is analytic reasoning right here. It involves a focus on the properties of the objects. Holistic thinking is more thinking about the relationships between the objects rather than just focusing on the properties of one. The book didn't mention actually anything about having roots in Greek philosophic traditions of Aristotle and Plato, and it also didn't mention anything about genetics, so we can rule those two out as possible answers. All right, this last question here, they were talking about facilitated communication, and if you don't remember off the top of your head, that was when they were talking about children with autism and other different cognitive impairments were previously silent, and then they found this way with a facilitator helping them type on a keyboard, they could maybe communicate with the children. This actually didn't work out very well because it turned out that the facilitators were actually the ones really controlling the keyboard, meaning that if they were thinking this is what the child might want to answer, they were more likely to move their hands in that direction. The book was careful to mention that it was not intentional. They were not deliberately faking the answers. So we can immediately rule out this third option right here. And then the overall conclusion from this is because the facilitators were controlling and it wasn't actually helping the others communicate, that it wasn't really a good avenue for future research. So we can rule out this fourth answer here about facilitated communication helping, and we can also rule out the second option about it being a promising new way of letting communication impaired people express their thoughts. So again, that leaves us with the correct answer is the first one, and that kind of sums up the finding overall. All right, that is the end of our frequently missed questions for this chapter. I'll be back again with chapter 4 later today. Thanks.